There comes a moment when the old life, no matter how familiar, can no longer hold the truth of who you're becoming. You feel it deep in the cells of your body, in the stillness of your breath, in the ache of your soul. That's not anxiety. That's the beginning of awakening. That's biology trying to align with purpose. Starting a new life doesn't begin with changing your surroundings. It begins with changing your patterns. Understand this. Your brain is not fixed. It is not your past. It is not your pain. It is a living, breathing instrument ready to be reshaped by your focus, your habits, your vision. Neuroplasticity is real, and you activate it not by waiting for the perfect time, but by stepping into controlled discomfort with intention. If you want a new life, you must see a new future. Not vaguely, not maybe. You must see it so clearly that your nervous system begins to believe it's already happening. Vision is not fantasy. It's a neural blueprint. When you set a goal charged with meaning, your dopamine system engages. Motivation doesn't come from nowhere. It's chemically created when you believe your actions have a purpose. And yet vision without action is just a dream. You must wake your body each day like it matters. Get sunlight in your eyes within the first hour of waking. Move your body with intensity. Eat in alignment with vitality. Sleep as if your future depends on it, because it does. These are not routines. These are non-negotiable rituals that signal to your biology, we're going somewhere new. Still, you will be tempted to return to who you were. That's not weakness. Who you were, that's not weakness. It's wiring. But wiring can be rewritten. You do it through repetition, not perfection. Through effort, not ease. When you take a cold shower, when you breathe deliberately through challenge, when you say yes to things that stretch you, you teach your nervous system to stop fearing change. Don't wait for the past to let go of you. You must decide to let go of it. And that is a sacred act. Self-forgiveness, self-direction, self-authoring. These are not just psychological concepts. They are acts of spiritual and neurological reconfiguration. The human brain is not static. It is dynamic, malleable, and responsive to experience, a principle known as neuroplasticity. But while this capacity exists throughout life, there are specific windows when change is more accessible and effective. These windows are not just defined by age, but by states of heightened attention, emotional engagement, and focused intention. When you begin anything new, be it a skill, habit, or transformation, you open a critical neuroplastic window, a period where your brain becomes more receptive to rewiring. This window doesn't stay open by chance. It must be consciously activated and extended through action. The key to opening this window lies in intensity and novelty. When something feels important or unfamiliar, your brain floods with neuromodulators like acetylcholine and dopamine. These chemicals mark the moment as meaningful, tagging the experience for retention and reinforcement. But this isn't just about what you do. It's about how fully you show up when you do it. Passive repetition doesn't shape the brain. Active, emotionally invested engagement does. If you feel frustrated, uncertain, or even afraid while trying something new, that's not a sign to stop. It's a sign that the brain is paying attention. To optimize this window, timing and environment matter. Align your efforts with the circadian rhythm. Early in the day, your brain is more primed for plasticity and learning. Sleep solidifies the changes. Deep rest converts short-term efforts into long-term structure. But the most important element is consistency. Neuroplasticity doesn't reward random effort. It rewards repeated, focused action in the direction of growth. You don't need a different life. You need to apply the same principles daily. Knowing each repetition engraves a new identity. Neuroplasticity is not a gift for the few. It is a biological truth waiting to be claimed by those who commit with intention. The brain is designed to respond to what is new, uncertain, and just beyond your current capability. Novelty and challenge aren't just obstacles to overcome. They are biological triggers that activate the very systems responsible for learning, motivation, and transformation. When you step into unfamiliar territory, your nervous system lights up. Dopamine, the neuromodulator of anticipation and reward, begins to flow. This isn't just about pleasure. It's about signaling to the brain. This matters. Pay attention. Remember this. And routine can be comforting, but it often leads to neural stagnation. Without new inputs, the brain defaults to efficiency, not growth. That's why even small disruptions, taking a different route to work, learning a new language, lifting a slightly heavier weight, speaking in an unfamiliar setting, can reignite dormant circuits. Each time you do something difficult or unfamiliar, you signal that adaptation is required. And when you do it consistently, the brain rewires to meet the new demand. Challenge must be calibrated, not overwhelming, too easy, and you stay the same, too hard, and you shut down. But when the difficulty sits at the edge of your ability, what psychologists call the optimal zone, you generate the deepest learning and the most lasting change. That's when neuroplasticity is most powerful. You're not just learning a skill, you're changing who you are. Sustainable transformation requires deliberate exposure to discomfort paired with recovery and integration. It's the friction of challenge followed by rest that allows your system to consolidate new pathways. Growth doesn't come from thinking about doing hard things, it comes from doing them. The brain grows by what it demands of itself. Create a life where you are constantly invited into newness, and you'll build a nervous system that thrives not on certainty, but on possibility. A powerful transformation begins with vision, but not just any vision. It must be one anchored in deep personal purpose. When you define a future that resonates with your values, identity, and inner truth, you activate neural systems in the brain that move you toward that reality. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and decision-making, becomes more active when you hold a vivid image of your future self. And when that image is emotionally charged, it recruits dopamine, sharpening your focus and increasing your willingness to endure effort. Vision without purpose fades. It becomes a wish. But when your vision is connected to something meaningful, something bigger than ego or external validation, it becomes a compass. It helps your brain filter distractions and prioritize behaviors that are aligned with long-term goals. Every time you visualize that purpose-driven future, you reinforce the neural circuits needed to make it real. You're literally training your brain to prefer the version of you that is still becoming. But vision alone is not enough. You must ritualize it. You must see it daily, speak it, feel it, move it. When you imagine your future life with clarity, where you live, how you speak, what your body feels like, who benefits from your growth, you engage multiple brain regions at once. This multisensory rehearsal accelerates internal change before external change ever arrives. And purpose grounds the vision when things get hard. When motivation dips, when discomfort rises, purpose is the thread that holds the structure together. Without it, resistance wins. With it, resistance becomes fuel. A vision anchored in purpose is not just a mental image. It's a neurobiological strategy for becoming. It reminds you who you are and who you are meant to become, even when the world hasn't yet caught up. Lasting change is not the result of a single breakthrough, but the outcome of repeated intentional actions embedded into your daily life. The nervous system thrives on rhythm and repetition. Daily protocols, structured habits tied to biology, create the scaffolding for transformation. These aren't just routines for productivity. They are deliberate practices that regulate your internal state and optimize the brain and body for growth, focus, and resilience. When you anchor your day with protocols that align with your physiology, you reduce cognitive friction. Simple acts: getting sunlight within an hour of waking, hydrating before caffeine, deliberate cold exposure, movement early in the day, send powerful signals to your system. They reset your circadian rhythm, modulate cortisol, and prime neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. These aren't hacks. They are fundamental biological levers that determine whether your mind is alert, adaptable, or stuck in survival. Consistency is key. The brain doesn't change because you do something once. It changes because you do it repeatedly with conscious intent. Daily protocols work by reinforcing identity. Each time you complete a deliberate habit, you signal to your nervous system, "This is who I am now." Over time, that becomes encoded in the structure and chemistry of the brain. But discipline must be intelligent. Your protocol should be rooted in both science and self-awareness. You don't need a perfect day. You need a repeatable rhythm. And when life becomes unpredictable, it's your protocols that keep you grounded, that hold you steady in the face of stress, fatigue, or emotional chaos. These small acts done daily are what separate direction from distraction. They are not restrictions. They are freedom because they build the internal stability required to pursue your higher vision. When you honor the body and mind through daily protocols, you create a system that supports who you're becoming, not just what you're doing. The body is not separate from the mind. It is a direct gateway to it. Every thought, emotion, or mental pattern is mirrored by a physiological state. Okay. When you intentionally engage the body, you gain access to a powerful mechanism for shifting your internal experience. Breath, posture, movement, even temperature. These are tools that influence your neurochemistry and cognitive state in real time. Cognitive state in real time. For example, slow, deliberate exhalations activate the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling safety and calm to the brain. This simple act lowers stress hormones like cortisol and reduces activity in areas associated with anxiety. It's not psychological trickery. It's physiology doing what it was designed to do. Likewise, posture affects mindset. Standing tall with an open chest increases levels of alertness and confidence, while a slouched position reinforces a message of defeat, both biologically and emotionally. Movement also plays a critical role. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, enhances the release of endorphins, and elevates levels of dopamine and BDNF, a molecule essential for neuroplasticity and long-term memory formation. Even just a few minutes of intense movement can disrupt negative cognitive loops and reset mental clarity. Cold exposure, another powerful tool, triggers a controlled stress response that builds resilience, sharpens focus, and enhances dopamine output for hours after the experience. These interventions don't replace inner work. They make it more effective. When your body is in a regulated, activated state, your thoughts become clearer, your willpower stronger, and your emotional responses more adaptive. In essence, you use the body to create a fertile ground for the mind to grow. You're not waiting for inspiration to strike. You're using physical action to generate the mental and emotional states required for change. The body is not an obstacle. It's the fastest access point to becoming who you're meant to be. You are not a fixed product of your past. You are an adaptive system capable of conscious evolution. Self-directed adaptation means you take responsibility for shaping who you become. It's a fundamental truth of the nervous system. Your brain and body are always changing, responding to input, environment, behavior, and thought. The key is whether that change happens by accident or by design. When you embrace self-directed adaptation, you move from passive survival to intentional transformation. Adaptation is always happening. If you repeat the same emotional reactions, behaviors, and stories, your nervous system will reinforce those patterns. But if you begin to insert new behaviors, however small, with consistency and awareness, the system starts to reorganize. Your identity is not static. It is the result of what you practice daily. What you give attention to, you become. This process requires both agency and humility. You don't need to know everything in order to begin. You only need to take ownership of the inputs. The food you eat, the words you speak, the people you surround yourself with, the thoughts you repeat. These are all signals to your nervous system, telling it how to wire, how to respond, how to prepare for the future. Over time, these signals build structure. They shape perception, mood, and even what you believe is possible. Self-directed adaptation also involves accepting that discomfort is part of the process. The brain doesn't change without effort. Growth requires friction. It requires stress, but not chaos. With the right amount of challenge followed by rest and integration, the system upgrades. You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming for momentum in the direction of your highest potential. Adaptation is not a one-time shift. It is a way of living rooted in awareness, guided by purpose, and executed with consistency. Persistence is not merely about pushing through. It is about aligning with a deeper understanding of how lasting change occurs in the brain and body. Transformation isn't instant. It's earned through repetition, resistance, and time. The nervous system does not adapt to occasional effort. It responds to sustained signals that something matters to you. When you engage in a new behavior or pursue a meaningful goal, your brain initially resists. It's wired for energy conservation and familiarity. But with persistence, the unfamiliar becomes familiar, and effort begins to feel like identity. Each time you return to the task, even when motivation is low, you send a message to your brain. This is important. That message is encoded in the structure of your neural circuits. Dopamine, the molecule of drive, isn't just released when you succeed. It's also released when you anticipate meaning in the effort itself. When you learn to associate value with the process, not just the outcome, you rewire your entire motivational system to you. And that is discipline rooted in wisdom, not force. There will be friction. Fatigue, doubt, and failure are not signs to quit. They are thresholds to cross. Persistence is the act of staying long enough for the nervous system to recalibrate, for your biology to catch up to your vision. And on the other side of that friction is strength, not just physical or mental, but structural change in who you are. True persistence is sacred because it honors the way nature works. Growth comes in cycles. Some days built, others restore, but all are part of the process. When you stay consistent, you're not just developing skills, you're reinforcing your capacity to evolve. This is how you earn a new life, not through inspiration alone, but through the quiet, unwavering discipline of showing up again and again with purpose.